Ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward, our next speaker for the day, Samar Singla. Samar is the founder and CEO of Jugnoo, an auto booking service. Jugnoo launched at a time when competitors were announcing massive fundraising. Today, Samar will share his experience surviving and growing against the billion-dollar gorillas. A big round of applause for the gentleman.
Hi everyone. So, me, Samar and Chinmay, we are the co-founders of Jugnoo. Basically, it's a auto rickshaw hailing app, and basically, everybody knows what a hailing app is. So I thought, there's no point of talking about what a hailing app is and how do you, press a button, auto comes. Everybody really knows about that. But what people really ask us all the time is, why are you going up against Ola and Uber when they are, starting the same business? And what's the thought process? In fact, a lot of VCs don't really believe that somebody can go up against these guys. We feel so we thought, okay, what's our thought? So let's talk about that. And so we look at ourselves like a cockroach, right? So if you look at startups, there are unicorns, there are standard startups, then there are cockroaches. So cockroaches are, by definition, I took it from somewhere, it's some article about startups. So cockroaches are by definition startups in a space that nobody wants. So if you look at auto space, right, startups are dying left and right. I mean, nobody is able to raise funding, everybody is dying, nobody's really growing except Ola and Uber, which are not really in that space. So it's a bad space. But then cockroaches are somebody who are resourceful and basically able to survive and grow despite all these issues. So we think of ourselves like that, and obviously we have two big billion-dollar gorillas in front of us who are going against our market and have massive war chests and massive discounts to give to users. So what do we do? What is our thinking? That's what we really wanted to talk about. So basically our first strategy is to survive and not win, right? So whenever we think about startups, a lot of people actually, have a very competitive, I mean, if you are doing a startup, right, it's pretty obvious that you're going to be a competitive person. But a lot of times you don't really need to actually win against anybody, right? So we for example, our aim is not to win against Ola or Uber. Our aim is to survive independently and just keep growing, basically. That's all. So what that means, so the reason for that is simple. I mean, if you want to win eventually, you need to be alive, right? So if we want to focus on winning eventually, we don't want to focus on winning today. So because if we want to focus on winning today, I mean, that would mean going up against Ola and Uber and just basically running out of our funding and whatever we have, right? So that's the first mantra. So what that means is that essentially grow in places where you are not contested. So we are in 20 cities today, and we don't really compete with Ola and Uber, right? Wherever they spend money, wherever they burn money, we actually wait. So we never compete. So whenever Ola starts a campaign, Uber starts a campaign, we actually stop our campaigns. So what we do is we say, okay, let's let them get more users onto the platforms, onto the hailing platforms, and then we'll come in, because eventually all promotions stop, and we can always start our promotions at that time. And then we focus on geos where they are not going, right? So basically we are focusing on survival and not winning. And then in startups, especially in tech startups, speed is the key, not size. So essentially, if you look at recent experiments as companies grow big, the team structures become very big, the hierarchy becomes very, very complicated, and it's very difficult to take decisions faster. As a company, which is a very small company, we are just 11 months old. Our core team is just 10 people. So we can take decisions very fast and essentially act upon them very, very fast. So once we take a decision, we can actually start executing it in less than 24 hours. And that is our focus. That is our, that is one thing that actually keeps us very, very nimble and agile compared to big companies, because once they decide something, they take months and at least weeks to implement something. And we can actually use that to our advantage, use our size to our advantage, and be very, very fast. So one example of that would be, we do experiments very fast. So if we want to launch a product, we'll not think about, setting up very complicated campaigns. We'll just go to some smaller city, smaller market, and just launch a pilot without even having an app, without even having any tech platform, just having, two people in the field doing a small platform, a small test, and see how it works, and that's it. But a big company generally never does that because they want a lot of data to see. They want a lot of, the CEO is generally very, very busy to actually go to the field, things like that. So that is the second thing that we are trying to do, and basically focus on our speed and use our small size as an advantage rather than a disadvantage. And then finally, thought leadership. So yaar funde to free hote hain basically, right? That's one of the ethos that we focus on. So if you look at big companies, right, their focus will be to come up with sales. As the speaker before me was telling, sales always work. But actually novelty also works. So if you go to a city where nobody has seen an auto hailing app, and you go to people who have never used your competitor before, and you tell them what this product is and it's novel for them, you find those people, it will actually work for them because for them you are thought leaders. And with India, every day so many people are coming to smartphones for the first time. I think, we have a very good shot at being thought leaders to the bottom 80% of India, while our competition can take the top 20% probably. So that's what we are trying to do, be thought leaders in what we are doing. And then finally, differentiate, right? So what we are trying to do is, we are trying to be different from the ground up, right? So a lot of people ask me, so it works just like Uber, right? You press a button and auto comes. And I mean, the simple answer to that is yes, it works like Uber. You press a button and auto comes. But the real answer is no. Because if you look at Uber or Ola, right, our strategy is completely different from the pretty much every. So if you look at every aspect of the function, operations is different. So if you go to an auto rickshaw, he'll generally tell you, Ola and Uber पैसे बहुत देते हैं and हम काम बहुत देते हैं, right? So our approach is, we won't go to 1,000 drivers and build supply day one. We'll go to just a few drivers, give them engagement, engage them to such a high degree that they become our evangelists. Typically, most of the marketing on the driver side is actually done by drivers whom we call super drivers. So, we differentiated by saying that we will not go for numbers in terms of drivers, but rather going for quality of low number of drivers. Similarly, there are no guarantees that we do. So on the model, Ola and Uber typically give incentives for every ride to drivers. We don't do that. So what we would say is, we'll give you so much work that on an average you'll make more money. So it's very difficult sell when somebody is in front of you is giving you, if giving the same guy almost 4 or 5 times the money for the same task. It's a very difficult sell. But once you get the first few people, the kind of engagement that we see in our drivers is off the charts. So just to give you an example, Uber does about 0.4 rides a day per driver, per auto driver in Delhi. Ola does about 0.8 something rides per day per auto driver in Delhi, and we do about 4 rides per auto driver per day in Delhi, and we just launched about 45 days ago. So the point is that if you differentiate on every small minute point, eventually it shows in your supply, and eventually it shows in your customer support, in your customer service experience. And finally, if you want to use, so we have these big guys, right, who supposedly we should be afraid of, but they actually have a very good purpose also for us. So if you look at, this hailing space, a big challenge is actually the legal challenges, right? I mean, every day someone's getting banned somewhere in the world. So what do we do about it? We do nothing, because all we do is, okay, we go to, in fact, our city teams will go to, the Ola and Uber city teams and say, guys, these are the legal problems we are facing. So what do you do about it? They have, in all probability, solved them, and we just, piggyback on them. So basically, just try to focus on not solving some problems which are being solved by the big guys. Why spend money on those things? Why spend energy on those things which are already being done? So this is, so a few things of, or a few examples of this are, so when we go to a market, typically, people are already educated by these big guys. So we just go and piggyback, and there's a differentiation, right? We already know that people, people who are serving, who are consuming our services are a different demography, but the education is being done by the big guys. So we just go in and offer the same product to a different demography that is being educated and cannot afford taxis. So essentially we let the big guys solve our problems and piggyback on them to just get our purpose solved. And finally, what we have done is, we launched 11 months ago, 11 and a half months ago. In fact, Chinmay launched us on this very stage last year. And since then, we have had about 800,000 users, a million plus transactions total. We are doing about 10,000 daily transactions. We are present in 20 cities. We are launching one tier 1 city every month, and we are launching one tier 2 city every 4 days. So on the funding side, we closed our Series A investment in May, closing our Series B investment as we speak. So it's still early days, whether we'll survive in 6 months or not. But our thinking is this: I mean, auto rickshaws compared to taxis, every day there are about 30 million auto rides in the country, which is 3 crores, right? So that's like 3%, roughly 2.5% of Indian population taking an auto rickshaw ride every day. To compare that with taxis, that's less than 1/10 of this number, right? Of course, the ticket sizes are higher, but if you look at, we have a 10 times bigger market in number of transactions. And these people are actually not even, a lot of times our users are not even Flipkart users, not even digital commerce users. We actually go to bus stops and stuff, and people are actually, the only app they use typically is WhatsApp. And we are the first commerce app that they start to use. And that gives us an ability to actually capture this market. And if we are able to build a bigger user base and a transaction base, right? Not GMV, because we are not really going to be able to build a bigger GMV than Uber, right? But if we are able to build a bigger transaction base, which is very possible, right? I mean, 10% of 30 million rides, 3 million transactions a day. No company in the world does that ever, right? I mean, 3 million transactions a day. So that is what our focus is, to basically take this market. And at that point, we'll start thinking about winning rather than surviving. So right now, it's still early days, but I think we have grown so far, and our cost of growth is less than 1/20th per same dollar of GMV compared to Ola and Uber. So that gives us confidence that we will be able to reach scale before these guys are able to pump their money in and take the market from us. And I think we have a good shot at it. So I think as everybody, I've seen a lot of people being very afraid of flying cockroaches, right? So what we feel is that today we are a cockroach, but if we get wings somehow and we become a flying cockroach, I think gorillas will also be afraid of us. So that's pretty much it. Any questions? Please feel free. Sorry? Can't really disclose that, but I mean, we are not interested in that. Honestly, it's a 0-1 game. We'll play to the end. Yeah, please go ahead.
I have a question here. You said you start off with a small set of drivers and get them engaged. But then as an end consumer, your choices are limited, and if you don't get the options, you typically tend to lose trust in that app and kind of move to others.
Sorry, come again?
You said you start off with a small set of drivers, but as a consumer, if I'm not getting a driver, I'm not getting a ride, I tend to move away from the platform and either go somewhere or not come back to it again.
So the thing there is speed. Really, what we want to do is, we want to start with a small set of drivers, but to move to a big set of drivers, we want to move very, very fast. So let's say So, in fact, every city, based upon upon the size of the city, has some mathematical number of drivers which should be live at every time. And if you have those many drivers which are live at any given time, you should be fine. ETAs would be pretty good. And for a city like Bangalore, that number is about 200. So 200 drivers in a city like Bangalore are not a very big deal, right? Just keeping them live. The point is, what happens when you start getting traffic? So at that point, we need to have engagement. So can I have drivers who are so dedicated, who will go 5 kilometers to actually take a ride at midnight? And my drivers do that because they feel that I have to. So we have these campaigns like super drivers, who's doing maximum. So there is gamification amongst drivers. So these drivers at midnight will routinely go 5 kilometers to take a ride. And during that time, actually consumers are also very, very open to waiting. So what we have seen is you go to that number very, very fast, but beyond that, grow at a pace where engagement is the primary metric of drivers, how many rides he's taking rather than how many drivers you have live. So yes, there is a small period of maybe about 20 to 30 days in a city where we don't have that number, but that happens to everybody. Even learning takes that long. So,
okay, I have a question. Yeah, so while your user acquisition has been quite impressive, it's here.
yes, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
so acquisition has like you have a lot of users in a quick time. That's that's a great thing. But my question, I have two questions basically. First one is, how are you planning to add value to the an average city user of an auto, where the actual user experience of using an auto is very subpar compared to using an Uber or another a cab or a Ola cab or something like that. That is number one. The second thing is, if you compare the ride rates, so recently Taxi for Sure and Uber is actually working out cheaper than an auto ride. So so how do you basically plan to add value now that you have got good number of users?
Sure. So let me answer the first question. See, the most people in India don't really care about comfort, right? What they care about is they want to get from point A to point B fastest and cheapest. That's what we feel, right? So fastest we are because we have highest density, right? We're typically fastest of pretty much anybody else, right? Because of typically, look at autos, how many autos are there. So cheapest part is actually, so what one thing is, it is right that Ola and Uber are cheaper than autos if you compare an auto. In fact, that is actually helping us. So what that does is, on the auto side, all we have to do to enroll an auto is, we go to an auto and say, guys, these guys are actually selling taxis cheaper than an auto. They are not their friends, and everybody hates Ola and Uber in the auto rickshaw community, right? All we have to do is just show them the prices of the taxis, and that's it. And how do we become cheapest? We actually subsidize autos. We actually tell and convince an auto rickshaw to ride below the government prices also, because they get more rides. So a typical auto rickshaw in the country takes about 6 rides a day. That is about 30% of the time that he's on duty. So about 70% of the time he's actually sitting idle. So we go there and show this data to every auto rickshaw driver. Some understand, a lot don't. And when they understand, they typically start to take about 15 to 20 rides a day, and they actually are actually cheaper than meter. That's what we have achieved, and without subsidy. So because of that, we are able to compete. And now if you look at the other scenario, right, why doesn't Ola and Uber come in and just subsidize autos? Because they can't. Their taxis are sitting idle. Their taxis are actually right now about 40% fulfillment. So they cannot subsidize autos. So I have this window where I don't really need to worry about it, about their subsidies. It's actually helping me getting more autos getting engaged, and I am able to be the front which they are aligning with. So what was your second question?
The second question was that how do you plan to add value to the actual user experience when you see mostly the issue with the auto walas are that they are not courteous. They have a lot of issue with following a route that the user wants to take, and following, say, a Google Maps. Like the drivers at Uber, they follow a Google Maps navigation. So an autowala
Sure.
might not want to follow that.
Yeah,
So how do you
got,
plan
got.
to use to actually use to create value for the end user?
Yeah, one thing I've realized in the last year is we have a huge misconception about autowalas, how they are, right? I mean, we used to think when we started this company that autowalas are the guys who are actually bad behavior, right? I mean, they are the guys who are yelling at people. And I can promise you, I have the data to support this. Most of the times, actually, consumers are the guys who are yelling first on the auto driver. And most of the times, consumers are the guys who are haggling more with an auto guy because they don't trust it. It's a vicious cycle, true, right? And auto guys are also not like saints, right? There's no doubt. But you have to understand their mentality, right? An auto guy is sitting idle for 70% of the time. Imagine sitting idle for 6 hours every single day and be happy about it. You just can't be, right? They want to work. And once you start giving them that work, and that's the reason why why the engagement kicks in. The moment an auto guy starts doing 20 rides, he's super happy. Take an auto ride with a Jugnoo guy who's taking engagement, who's taking like 15, 20 rides. I can tell you the numbers if you want to test it out. We are doing studies which show this. These guys will tell you, you talk to them, they're super happy and they have this sense of pride which a normal auto guy doesn't have. And it's not because of money. It's actually because they are feeling more accomplished because they're working more. So if you look at, the psychology of human behavior, right? I mean, people get motivated not just by money, but actually by working. Right? Work is one of the big motivators. If you look at all the serotonin and all the hormones that get secreted that make people happy, working makes people happy, not just the money that they get after it. Money is actually addictive because if you keep doing something through money, you have to keep increasing the amount of money to get the same kick. But if you get somebody happy by working, you actually don't have to increase the amount. So it's actually much more logical way to induce a behavior. That's, I think, working really well for us.
I have a question.
Sure.
We have heard quite a few incidents in the past with those so-called gorillas, drivers, the background checks and things like that. Are you doing anything different in terms of auto drivers' background checks for safety?
See, one, as I told you, we don't focus on numbers. We don't go out and spread like 1,000 phones in a day. We don't do that. We grow very slow compared to, when it comes to our supply. Our only, focus is to maintain the quality and engagement of the supply and everything follows. And because of this slowing down of growth, actually everything happens. I mean, I could easily say, yes, we do have a police verification, but what merit does a police verification hold in this country, right? I mean, everybody knows a police verification is just nothing. You can give 500 rupees to anybody, any cop, and he'll write whatever you want him to. I mean, if not any cop, but a lot of cops do that, right? I mean, everybody knows that here. So all we need to do is really see what is working. And what is working is slowing this thing down, engaging it. And when autos become so engaged that they become your evangelists, they actually make sure the bad drivers are not there. And to your point, we have been able to get users very well. The reason is our auto drivers actually get most of our downloads. So what happens when I have 5 million auto rickshaws? That's the number of drivers in the country right now. So if 5 million evangelists start telling people, please download Jugnoo, I want to ride through, you should ride through Jugnoo with me. I don't need any newspapers, I don't need any TV channels, nothing really is needed. And that's happening at a small scale, and I plan to just do that. Just keep scaling it. So the answer is just slow it down and make sure focus on engagement, and people take care of it. People make sure that bad people cannot come into the network. Auto guys will actually complain if there is a bad guy. So it has happened to us a lot of times. A new driver came in, he used to drink or something, he used drugs or something. And auto guys came to us and complained about that guy and kicked him out of the network. And that shows to me that it's working. And there's nothing that can work better than a referral system when people are engaged on that.
The last question.
Yeah.
See, honestly, what worked for us is it's not really what we have tried, right? Our first focus is, let's set out a channel that tomorrow Ola and Uber cannot come and capture. So what do they have? They have money, right? They don't have bandwidth, they don't have patience to actually focus on user behavior. Because honestly, I mean, they are being kicked by their investors to, grow faster, 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 right? So I have that patience, or in fact, I don't really need to have that also, because the culture is now working. So what my strategy is different is that I'm not doing one-to-many marketing. I'm making my evangelists, my drivers, my marketing guys, and that is working. And that does not happen through money. That's the point. If I go in and tell an auto driver, I'll give you 200 rupees, I'll give you 100 rupees for every driver, every guy you bring in, they'll start thinking of cheating. And that's what's happening to Ola and Uber, right? All the drivers always thinking how to cheat, right? That's the 80% of the time, 80% of the thought process they have. And with me, I don't really bring money into the picture. It sounds very odd. I completely get that. I get that all the time by investors. That's complete bullshit, doesn't work, right? But when you go to the ground and actually you say somebody, 10 times the same thing and it actually has merit, it has to be logical. It can't be completely bullshit, right? And what I'm saying actually makes sense. They're selling taxis below auto prices. They want to, kill you out. And that's where I come in and I become the hero automatically. And by doing that, I'm able to do something by motivation that these guys are doing by money. And as these EDSO theory of hormones tells us, money has to be kept increasing, right? While motivation doesn't. If people start feeling good about something, if people start feeling a sense of community, when they get somebody in that community, right, you don't need to pay them. And they are making more money as a byproduct, which is happening. Less number of people are making more money, which is fine because I don't have to pay them. So, and then they go ahead and increase that community themselves, which is very different from Ola and Uber, because it's a one-to-many relationship. For me, I've been able to create a community effect.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samar.
Thank you.